Hey friends, welcome back. So today I'm going to get a first session in on the Verve skates. So we got some pretty heavy rains in Denver last night, so my skate park's a little washed out. I've broomed it up as best as I can, but some parts are still kind of flooded out. So I'm just going to warm up on this pyramid. Let's go ahead and get to it. Some of the feedback that I've heard about these skates is that the shock absorber is pretty thin and soft, and just hitting jumps over the pyramid, feeling that. So probably something that I'm going to keep an eye on, and may end up just swapping out the shock absorber. But you know, I didn't show all the clips, but I hit a pyramid a good 20 times, and you know, I'm not getting any foot that's expanding, hitting the side of the shell or the toes, which is good, because that was kind of my concern with you know, my foot and the shell size. We'll see how it goes. I'm gonna hit this bank and try maybe a couple 360s just to continue warming up. All right, so definitely landing on those bank to 360s and then this bank to 180. Definitely feel my toe kind of hitting the end of that, the shell. So, you know, if my liners break in and I'm still kind of getting that, that may be an easy thing to just punch out. But let's go ahead and transition over to grinds. You know, my favorite ledge, bank to ledge, is still pretty wet right now. So we'll just try this little C ledge here. All right, sole plates are feeling nice and fast. Definitely feeling the really soft shock absorber right now. So that's probably gonna get changed out after this session. So I am a 275 Mondo, and that translates to a 42 to 42.5 shell, based on the size chart that's on their Instagram webpage. One thing to note is when I first put these on, my foot was like touching the end of the shell on the inside and wasn't really sure if they were going to work. They come with this like little thin plastic piece that goes under the liner. I took that out because the liner already has kind of rigid plastic on the bottom of it. And then I also took off that rubber kind of reinforcing strap that's on the back side of the cuff, and then took out the liner lace and used the stock laces to lace it all the way up. And that seemed to pull my foot back enough where when I was wearing it around the house for a couple hours yesterday, I was no longer touching the end of the shell. So really optimistic that these are going to work out for me. All right, so I just wrapped up my first session on these. You know, overall, I thought it was an okay session. The biggest thing that was getting to me was the lack of shock absorption, and that was really bothering my knee. And you know, what happens with me personally is if I don't have a good shock absorber, all that energy transfers into my knee, and then it starts getting stiff, and then it makes grinding a little more challenging, specifically like with rolling over on H-block tricks, or if I'm trying to do top sides. You'll note I missed a couple top horns earlier. You know, did feel my toe hitting the end of the boot just a little bit. So what I'll do is play around with, you know, replacing the insole shock absorber and just seeing what I have and seeing if that helps. And if it doesn't, then I may just use my heat gun and try and just press out that toe a little bit to see if it creates a little more space. You know, overall, I thought the width on these was really good. Flex, you know, these come in the these have the adjustable cuff, and the cuff comes in the lowest position. And to me, it felt very similar to Factions, but just a little more stiff. So I'm sure that plastic is going to loosen up, you know, over time. And then laces, you know, I thought these laces were just a hair too short, and because they're not waxed, they kept loosening up on me. So I'll probably swap them out with a waxed lace. But look forward to skating them, and I really appreciate my wife and daughter getting these for me for Christmas. All right, so I'm back for day 2 on the Verve skates. So yesterday I took these out for kind of the first spin, ran into some issues with the shock absorbers. So when I got home, I swapped them out with rollerblade blank insoles. And then I had a pair of the Intuition shock absorbers laying around, so I swapped those out. And then I swapped my laces out for a pair of just teal wax laces that I had laying around. It's not the most fitting color, but that's how we're gonna roll today. So let's see if these improvements change the experience. One of the first things I did when I got home yesterday was pulled out the shock absorber, and it's a very soft and thin shock absorber. Well, it's not so much thin, it's just really, really soft. And I noticed in the heel area, I completely flattened it out. So there is no cush there at all. And that was just from one session. So, you know, these are very, very low quality shock absorbers. And I would almost say that, you know, they're not really effective. So if you are looking at getting these skates and need some shock absorption, that's probably one of the first things you're gonna wanna change out. Changing out the insole and the shock absorber, major improvement for today. You know, my knee is pretty sore from skating yesterday, so I think I'm gonna take it pretty easy today, but I do wanna try and get just a couple transition stuff, so I'll top over to that. Landing, transitions, much better. Let's get some grind. One thing that I really like about these skates is the look down on them. They don't look wide, they look pretty skinny, even though they are a bit wider. Well, overall, that was a lot better of a session. I did end up having to cut it short because I cored one of my wheels to the point where it was unskatable. So, you know, overall, made some improvements. I really boosted how these things skate, and look forward to continuing to ride them. All right, so I'm back for day 3 on the Verve skates, and mainly today, trying to get a good grinder blader session going on. I got the somatic wheels put on them just due to coring some wheels yesterday. Let's get to it. All right, well, that wraps up today's session. I had a lot more fun out there today, and you know, I'm starting to get a better feel of how these skates are. You know, so what am I thinking of them so far? You know, first thought is the shock absorber and the insole are trash. I ended up swapping them out, and even with swapping them out, I'm still feeling a little bit more shock in my knees, not as much as like the first day. And I think part of that is due to that new large metal bridge that they actually put in, and it's basically just conducting all the energy and transferring it through my feet into my knee. You know, so that's one thought. And then I think, you know, another contributor to that is because the frame is so thick and so dense that, you know, that doesn't really have any ability to absorb shock either, so that's transferring. And then there's not any kind of foam between the sole plate and the boot that just kind of helps dampen. Some skates do have that. So just something to note. You know, as far as the liner goes, you know, I think the liner's pretty comfy. My issue is because of the neoprene toe. Like sometimes when I'm like taking landings, my foot like pushes forward, and because it is neoprene, it's got a lot of give, and there's not a lot of room between the end of the liner and the inside of the boot, so my toe ends up kind of smashing into that. But I think what I'm going to do is just, I've got some foam that has a sticky side on it, so I think I'm gonna just like stick that at the front of the boot just to help like absorb that up. But you know, with having to change the shock absorbers, you know, with the neoprene toe thing, kind of makes you wonder if you know, you wouldn't be better off just swapping out the liner, just by like, you know, the cost of like having to piecemeal everything together. Something to consider if you're buying these. You know, stock wheel changed out to somatic wheels. You know, I would say that the stock wheel performed, you know, as expected for a stock wheel. Much better experience today changing out the wheel. You know, as far as fit goes, I feel like the fit on these is similar to like the standard Omni and maybe like the FR, UFR with like the Intuition liners, but I would say they're not quite as comfortable as the Intuition liners, you know, because you can kind of feel parts of the skate pushing through the thin liner. It's not where it's like uncomfortable, but it's something that you do feel and notice. How do they grind? You know, I feel like when I'm doing regular sole tricks, they slide really well. When I'm doing top sides, I've got to kind of wax the shit out of everything, and that ends up making it slide a lot better, which is kind of surprising for how hard the plastics are on this. Do I feel like these are very wide? I don't know. I'd say they're similar to the rollerblade blanks in standard Omni, you know, as far as width goes. And then I don't feel like the toe box is very tall at all. But if you get these, you know, that's one thing you can do is use a heat gun, shove a tennis ball under there, and just kind of heat it out and expand out that toe box just a little bit. But yeah, you know, I'm going to continue to skate these. I'm going to look at, you know, maybe swapping these out with like an FP insole and just continuing to skate them and see how they break in and continue to ride over time. You know, I really appreciate you all for checking in. Please let me know if you got any questions, comments. Thank you again to my wife and daughter for getting me these skates. Love that they support me so much with my skating and, you know, just capturing my life skating, whatever that means, whether it's good or shit. And thank you all for checking in. We'll catch you next time. All right, so one thing I forgot to mention is that the boot down on these skates is really steep, at least for me. And I don't know if that's due to the H block or the sole plate backslide groove or just the way that they pair up. But for me, I notice it's very hard to get the boot down in these skates.